Minister, we will start with Honorable Josphat's challenge and the issue he raised regarding the non-implemented project. Honorable Minister and Chair, indeed we had a number of engagements with the Honorable Josphat, and ultimately on the rural electrification side, and just tying in with all the issues raised by the members, we need to once again highlight what we highlighted yesterday and the challenge that we've been dealing with, and we want to thank you and Finance for making it better next financial year. This program for this financial year running, where we were supposed to have some quick interventions, just to reiterate, was allocated 35 billion in the budget running. We are closing the year and that entire has not been fully released. But we also had an opportunity to cater for those abandoned projects through domestic arrears to a tune of 45 billion Ugandan shillings total. And for the domestic arrears, Finance has committed to release these during Q4. Now, what I know you've said we give a lot of hope, but indeed financing has been a challenge. Many times we say you received 500 billion as a ministry when you were winding up for electrification. This 500 billion Ugandan shillings only materializes through the budgeting process. We never received hard cash to implement. So if the ministry, but we want to thank you that in the new budget, you have supported us to a tune of 161 billion Ugandan shillings. So you've lifted this financial year running at 35 billion Ugandan shillings to 161 billion Ugandan shillings. We highlighted that for us to implement this project efficiently, we need an average of about 200 billion Ugandan shillings annually. But if you go into the last 3 years, we have not exceeded a 30 billion, apart from last year, this year 35 billion Ugandan shillings. So we don't want to keep lamenting, but this has been the situation. With domestic arrears not paid, that's why contractors are not on site in many of these locations. So as a general principle, our commitment is that as we enter the new financial year with this raised funding at 161 billion, we will endeavor to continue implementing the projects alongside the electricity access scale-up project. So, Honorable Chair, that is, I've combined issues rural electrification, but the Minister will come in where necessary, especially also on Honorable Josphat's issue. Honorable Karubanga, you raised a critical issue on the budget, again, for rural electrification, and you indicated that we had allocated a zero budget to support the counterpart on electricity access scale-up project. Yes, in terms of operation, that is the way the budget is framed. We have in the budget only 10 billion that is supporting us on the resettlement action planning, the way-leaves that we require for the distribution line. In the unfunded priorities, we've highlighted a gap of 22 billion Ugandan shillings to be able to drive the electricity access scale-up project in terms of way-leave acquisition. So in yesterday's conversation, we raised this matter prominently, and I hope that the committee will support us on that. We are happy to provide clear work plans, which we will have to support the committee as you engage the budget committee. Honorable Karubanga, you raised a concern on the error targets, and you provided advisory. Yes, we continue to have these discussions. In UEDCL's presentation, they highlighted, for example, the significant funding they need to address some of these commercial and technical losses. So that discussion we will continue, and we see how best to support them further, in addition to the support they've been given. You did provide some solutions on vandalism, and the MD will come in to speak to their viability, but they are good solutions, embossing, conductors, so that we are able to track what is getting onto the network. That was a good proposal. and MD, you just confirm the viability on the practical side. Tilenga and Kingfisher, the connectivity. This project is progressing. Specifically, on our side, we are implementing the Kabalega substation, or what they call Kabale substation, working with UETCL. The project is at 75% completion, and UETCL will speak further. They have funding constraints that we've discussed with finance, but the next budget, we've programmed 71 billion Ugandan shillings to support them conclude that project. So with funding supporting the budget, we are confident that UETCL will conclude and ensure that that substation is concluded in a timely manner. Honorable Karubanga, on the nuclear energy side, it's important, and for the benefit of Honorable Nsamba earlier on the investment plan, nuclear energy sits at the center of our energy policy, and we are not just moving ad hocly. That is not the fact today. In our energy policy, nuclear will contribute 24,000 megawatts out of our 52,000 megawatts projected by 2040 as part of our energy mix diversification. In doing this, we note the concern raised by Honorable Karubanga to ensure that we have a clear strategy around uranium processing. We are already doing confirming these uranium resources. Now, as part of the amendments of our atomic energy law, which we are bringing to Parliament, we are assigning specific roles on uranium processing production for nuclear to an entity that we will be proposing in that law, so that there is a specialized entity handling that. The Center for Nuclear Science and Technology in Soroti is largely meant to support us train and create a critical mass of staff of trained skills, a skill set that will support in the nuclear energy. Now, but the uranium processing does not in any way hinder the project. Even as we advance on that side, countries that run nuclear power plants don't necessarily process the fuel. It can be sourced. That also remains an option in terms of implementation of the project. Honorable Brenda, again, we do note the concerns, valid concerns that you've raised. And then on the no polls, again, we'll still put you in touch with the Rural Electrification Department to discuss the plans for that area. And beyond the meeting, we'll be happy to advance that discussion. Honorable Kataliwa, we note your guidance, and we will work with the department to truly first deal with the backlog in terms of what we had in what you termed as the database as we move forward, because many of these had already been programmed within the different projects, and the Commissioner will be given a chance to quickly speak to that. Honorable Nsamba, you raised a number of issues, and we note that transformer, Engineer Abdon, let's ensure we support where possible. He'll speak to that possibility. And then whether there is money to handle abandoned projects. With specifics, the Commissioner will come in at 161 billion Ugandan shillings. To what extent can we cover these abandoned projects? You raised issues on oil prices and the current role that UNOC and its partner is playing, and therefore the implication of the tax that is proposed next financial year of 250 Ugandan shillings. Now, indeed, you're right, in the last few days we've seen some appreciation in the price, largely driven by the forex exchange increase. And yesterday, the Honorable Minister extensively indicated the discussions we continue to have with the oil marketing companies to ensure that we are dealing with that and that they are not in any way exploiting that occurrence in terms of the forex exchange. On the tax side, we will go back and look at or work with finance to help them appreciate the impact on price 627 and then we can have a further discussion. Good enough, we have a representative from Finance, and Gideon, just pick that. Allow me on this one, I will call in later Mr. Mugaga to give us our prices on the UNOC side. The mineral markets, yesterday with a lot of emphasis from the Commissioner, Madam Alaba highlighted with precision our plans on the mineral markets. We have done all the groundwork. The regulation to support us to implement this, the Attorney General has cleared. We are moving to gazette it because there had to be a legal framework to support us implement this. And indeed, in the budget, we've provided some funding, but it's not sufficient. And in her presentation yesterday, she highlighted a deficit of about 10 billion Ugandan shillings. But she also highlighted the areas we are targeting: Busia, Entebbe, and others, Kasanda, etc. So in the next financial year, our commitment is that with this support in the budget now, we will roll out the initial mineral markets. And we are happy to have further discussion with you on that. On the export of power, again, we want to clarify that we are part of the wider East Africa power pool, where we sit with 12 other countries. And we cooperate through power trade in the region. When one country has a deficit, the other calls on the other. We see it all the time with Kenya. When they have a challenge on their side, they rely on us to support them. So it is, first of all, a regional cooperation issue under the East Africa power pool. And later on, Uganda can also benefit. For example, DRC is going to set up an over 5,000 megawatts dam one day, given the significant falls that they have. So we don't know what the future would look like. So as part of the power pool, you're then able to keep trading in power. That is one. But also two, right now we have the opportunity that we have, I wouldn't call it surplus, but some power that we can put in as we grow our generation capacity, but also as we grow our distribution. But it's important to state that the people of Uganda take first call. They have a right of refusal. As long as the Ugandans are not served, we cannot. There is infrastructure. We don't export. But because of infrastructure, that's a different issue, and we are working on that. That's why we have all these programs under rural electrification, UEDCL, to expand our grid and connect more Ugandans. So for now, we can continue trading, we grow our generation, we continue assessing the extent of power trade. So we are not in isolation, we are part of a regional, beyond even East Africa, of the East African community. Yes, when there is a deficit. And UETCL CEO quickly speak to those incidents where we have deficits and we have to import.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. Yes, we do, but rarely, because by and large we are net exporters. Where we really import is when we have maybe a disturbance, which rarely lasts a day, and then we get support from the other side, mainly Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Saba. Yes, now the PAU will briefly come in, but I know that in the reports they publish, maybe we didn't carry it to the committee and we'll provide it. They always disaggregate the reporting on national content to highlight the value given to Ugandans. So we'll start that way. PAU quickly address that, and we circle back on the technical side.
Thank you, PS, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. We indeed track these figures among the many things that we track in oil and gas. As we speak, for the flagship projects in upstream, there has been a total of about $7.7 billion in contracts. And of this, about $2.2 billion has gone directly to Ugandan companies. There are also some areas where Ugandans have not had capacity and they have formed joint ventures. So there has been many joint ventures formed. Currently, the joint ventures that have been able to secure contracts directly are about 37 joint ventures. That's between Ugandan companies and foreign firms. And the total value of contracts to these joint ventures is about $339 million. P.S. There was also a question from the chair, the difference between the DRS and the RTMC. If I may address that. Now, the Real-Time Monitoring Center is an operational infrastructure on a daily basis. When you produce oil from the ground, it moves in pipes. You don't know, you can't easily tell how much it is. So you can't wait at the end of the month for the oil company to come and tell you we produced this. So the Real-Time Monitoring Center, on a daily basis, you are keeping an eye on how much total fluid is being recovered from the reservoir, how much of that is oil, how much of that is water, how much of that is gas, and what remains after the processing and the cleaning, and therefore how much comes to government. On top of that, you are able to monitor how the underground reservoir is being managed, how much water is it producing, and every parameter actually tells you on what intervention you need to make in real time, immediate. As a regulator, you need to know what to ask of the operator, the immediate intervention, and all those things in real time on a daily. Now, the disaster recovery site is a different site and infrastructure, normally located outside your primary operational area. In the event that you have a fire, in the event that you have a flood, in the event that you have a cyber attack on the area that you are working with, you shouldn't just black out. So
if I may, Chair, if you may allow. Okay. You know, if I understood him right, and we share the same opinion, this infrastructure you make for real-time monitoring results into a database, isn't it?
Well, you are dealing with data.
Because in the common, for us, we are lay people, we are not scientists, but we have our cameras at home that stores data. That after a month, I can go home and check out what happened on such and such a particular day. So you can't have that unless you have a data storage. So if I understood Chair, and Chair, I stand to be corrected, he's saying that with this that you have established, can't it serve the same purpose for purposes of data storage and recovery, isn't it? Can't it serve the same purpose?
Honorable Chair, if I may, using the same example, if you have your cameras at home and they store your data at the premises at home, if your house should catch fire, if a thief should come and go with that hard drive, you black out. So, but now for the disaster recovery, you have another site that whatever you are doing here, there is a copy kept there. Yes, there is a backup, but also you can operate.